This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
So, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Thursday, May 22nd, 2025 meeting of the Southampton Senior Center Building Committee, and welcome. So, we first on the agenda, after calling the meeting to order at 12:31, yes, at 12:31. We have open time for public speak. So, Joanne had responded to a couple, maybe not 100% accurate information that was on the community Facebook page. So I invited her to come and speak and ask some questions and try to clarify some of those things. So thank you so much for being brave enough to come here. You know, we're a wicked crowd here.
Yeah, I was terrified, really.
To come here?
No.
Oh, okay. I was like, no.
At my age, I don't think so.
Too late for being terrified, right? Too late. So
I've had terrifying before. This isn't it. No.
This is nothing like that. So anyway, I'd like to open it to you, Joanne, and see what kind of questions you have. I know it was kind of specific, maybe to some information about Mr. Parsons' will.
That I was very curious about.
Okay. So it wasn't this committee, by the way, just to clarify. So we had a feasibility committee that had to complete a specific study within 2 years of his death. I was the co-chair of that committee as well.
Okay.
Libby was on it.
No.
Darcy was on it, but she's not here at the moment. She's running a few minutes late, I think so, of the original.
Okay.
And Libby, just for an example, it lives right across from Red Parsons' house. So they were neighbors, more or less. And Darcy, who will be in shortly, her partner spent a lot of time taking care of Red's property and as he aged. So she was also personally familiar with him.
It seemed like a lot of people did know him, and that's where I kept hearing little tidbits. I said, how can the guy be forgotten? You know, he put the money out there for the seniors, and something should be done with it. I said, is the money still there? Is it not there? I was told, yes, it's all there. No, it got split up into 4, 3/4 is gone. It's in a dormant account, not doing anything. I could go on.
Okay.
It's all nobody knows. It's all hearsay. And I said, I for one know if he gave that, he gave it from his heart, and something should be done.
Yep. So I just wanted to share that page of his estate.
Okay.
So we did scan it in, and because I know there was some kind of question about how was it, you know, what was his request. So pretty much, all the rest, so all his, after he distributed the main part of his will,
Correct.
Whatever remained after that was distributed, whether real, personal, or mixed, whether found in traditional format or digital, conferring specific power to access digital information on all online accounts, including but not limited to bank accounts, as well as video and audio online. I have no idea what that is. And all property over which I have a power of appointment, including my home at 69 High Street, along with certain undeveloped lot of real estate located off High Street in Southampton, is to be liquidated and the net proceeds thereon to be distributed to the Southampton Council on Aging. To be held in a trust by the SCA, so which is Southampton Council on Aging. So the executor didn't transfer all of the money to us until after we completed the study. So we didn't really have it in trust at that time. We had a portion of it to hire an architect to do a study on a future senior center. So said funds are to be used exclusively for the study, not for the building,
Correct.
For the study of establishing a separate senior center, whether it's to be by a purchase of real estate and or addition or construction of a new setting complex with adequate handicap parking, etc. So hopefully, and should the town of Southampton be unable to establish a final plan for the study for the renovation and or construction of a new senior center within 2 years from the date of my death, then it would be broken up 4 ways. So we did submit a study, the feasibility committee did submit a study to the executor, or to the lawyer that was representing the executor, and they collectively responded to us that we did meet the requirements of the will, and therefore that money was transferred in 2023, I think, the end of 2023, I'm trying to remember, late 2023, December timeframe, or was it 24? No, it wasn't,
No,
that was 23.
it wasn't 24.
And was then deposited with the town into a specified account only for those funds, that not to be used for anything else unrelated to the senior center.
Can I ask, is there any way it could be put into an account that would actually make interest?
And that's, I'm going to ask, Scott, can you speak to that a little bit? It is an account that's interest bearing.
Okay.
Okay, and it's split up in a couple different ways, because we
That's
need to
fine.
have some
Yep.
liquid and some that's not too risky, because we don't want to lose the principal.
Oh, yeah, I was kind of thinking like CDs, I don't know if that would be eligible, but on that kind of money, you could get 4.4% interest on it, or...
Sure. Scott, do you remember off the top of your head? So Scott is our town administrator. Do you know Scott?
No, hi.
Okay. And Chris, who's also on our committee, is the chair of the select board. Libby was on the original committee. Carl is new member to this committee, is active in the senior center and had some building experience. Ted is the chair of the Council on Aging board. Darcy has a
Hi there.
business in town, you know Darcy, and again was on the feasibility committee and knew Red personally. Dennis is the co-chair of this committee and also on the Council on Aging board. And I'm Janet Kane, I'm the co-chair of this committee, and I was the co-chair of the feasibility study committee. And this is Jerry. I'm finished the circle. Jerry, who is a member of this committee, has built-in experience as well.
Okay.
And
You all
That's-
seem to be invested in this, so I'm happy
Oh,
to see
yeah.
that.
just years invested, yes.
If I could just add, Scott, I don't know where the latest investments, but the money has been invested in different lengths of time. So there were some was divided up to have some liquidity. So we needed some to pay for appraisals or some other thing with legal fees, etc. So we kept a small amount aside
Yeah.
to be able to have some liquid cash, but the rest has been invested in 2 different ways. Some like a 6-month time frame, another like a 9-month or a 12-month time frame.
Okay.
As those have come due, we've worked with the treasurer to find the best investment vessel. So some of those have moved out of a particular investment account with our Bartholomew investment company. A couple of them are in a CD right now. Actually, they're in a
Okay.
long-term CD. When we saw that we could get some decent interest, we've done that.
Perfect.
And as those come due, we'll reevaluate as they keep along. But we're trying to get some interest earned upon that. I mean, it would be
We'd like for it to
phenomenally
grow as
helpful.
much as it
Mr.
can.
Rumor Mill and Mr. Hearsay have different stories, so
Correct.
I said, it bothers me, I want to ask.
Yeah.
And that's why I invited you,
Yeah,
because I
thank
don't
you.
want to get into this on Facebook. It's not
No.
the debate vehicle.
No, if I have something.
It
I
is
don't
for the
want
town,
out,
but-
yeah, that's why I'll message if I have something quiet.
Okay, yeah,
So-
yes, thank you for doing that as well.
Great.
And
Appreciate you coming.
yeah, we also were looking at property on Clark Street originally.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you were, and the study for the senior center is on the town webpage under the Council on Aging.
That I haven't seen.
Okay, so if you ever want to take a look at, it's a pretty detailed, thorough study. The property on Clark Street that everybody really liked a lot because of the location by the ball fields and everything. Unfortunately, had a lot of wetlands,
Oh.
and what we were going to pay for that was a good chunk of money from Red's estate. But when the town decided to buy, and the voters agreed to buy the property, which we call Zero College Highway, we donated $100,000 to secure the 4 to 5 acres on that property for a new senior center. So it was we saved a lot of money when the town decided to do that, because it would have cost us a lot more to buy the other property.
Yes.
So other questions would you have?
Basically, it was what happened to that property, can that be sold?
Which property?
I thought one property was donated for use. Is that the one you were speaking of on Clark Street? Or
No, that was
No,
not donated. We
his-
were,
They're referring to his property that was sold as part of his estate.
Okay,
But there was,
And
yeah, there was
two
no,
properties, his house and then another piece of property, and that was part of the estate.
that went to the
That
Council
went to
on
the,
Aging.
right, at the end, after everything else was dispersed. So
Okay.
he didn't leave the town any property.
okay, that was another Mr. Rumor,
Okay.
so.
And we had, so nobody has donated property for this, except when the town and the voters decided to purchase that property. We just wanted to secure
So
that
we made a
100.
donation for the property on College Highway, but didn't have anything to do with Red's estate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a separate donation towards that. About half of the cost of that property came from a family in town. So that was also a very generous donation.
Yeah.
There are a lot of generous people in
That was $1
town.
million.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
So yeah, Red's final donation was about 2.4 million. So we had spent some of it for the feasibility study.
Right.
And then once we got that approved by the executor, who happened to be his cousin, so knew him pretty well and what his desires were, the money was transferred to that account that was interest bearing. And it was approved by the executor and the attorney representing the estate. So the town head wasn't involved in that because we don't control what the executor does or anything, so it was just a matter of, they had to determine if we met the requirements of the will in their opinion.
So the plans are still to go forward, you're still interested
Oh,
in
yeah,
doing
yes,
something
yes.
with-
So we have a concept design from the study.
Yeah,
After last week, a lot of today will be discussed after the voting of this week. How do we best educate the public? Because as you found out, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And what would be the dollar amount that we feel that we could get approved by the voters in town? So we have a cost analysis that's also up on, that was updated recently because the study was 2 years ago. Costs have gone up in 2 years. Building codes changed in those 2 years, so the requirements by the state are changed. So we had to do an updated study for the cost estimate for this design. But it's not, the final plans would be the next step, to hire an owner's project manager and to an architect to do not a concept design, but blueprints ready to go so we can get a shovel in the earth. So that'll be coming up in the near future, I guess. And we're here twice a month usually to try to keep moving the plan forward on Red's behalf. Okay?
I think one of the early questions was about how much money still remains. Do we have an estimate about how much is still there?
Yeah, I think it's around
My computer.
2.3 and change.
It's at least that, yeah. I
So
didn't bring
we-
my computer. I'm
Yeah, and
sorry.
that's been
More
the
than what
last.
we were
I had an
allocated.
idea it was there, but my concern with everybody saying, it's sitting in a 0% interest account.
Well, people
And
ask
I-
the question.
Yeah.
You know,
You
but
are.
they won't ask,
Go
and
ahead.
I've asked, you asked, so that's why I do ask all the time.
Good,
Glad
thank
you
you.
did.
Because
Let me see if I can find that.
It's good
I
when
think I
you
sent
Why
you
don't
an
they
email
attend
recently,
know
too.
what's going on and know the truth.
Yeah.
Well, how do we get this kind of information out to the community?
That's part of our meeting. We won't,
It's a challenge on
we
this
won't,
town. I mean.
won't board. That's
No,
a
this
lot of
is-
good
it-
discussion.
You're the town moderator.
Administrator.
He's the town administrator.
Oh,
not-
administrator, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
The
Is there
town
a moderator?
moderator's at the town meeting,
Oh.
so.
The
Because
problem,
that's what we keep saying is if they put the robocalls back, that's how I used to have a crew. And so many people, one of my neighbors said, what vote? She had no idea about the vote coming up. They
So
just
some-
don't know.
yeah.
If you don't have kids in school, you're not on Facebook, you just don't really know.
well, the hard part too is with Facebook is you can put the information out there, but you get one or two people that are constantly putting new things on and it pushes in my opinion, the truth got pushed way, way down to the bottom and all these stories got pushed way, way up because they were literally, if you look at the names, it was the same people posting. So it was really hard to keep up with that amount of posts with
Trying
accurate
to see what the date of this one
information.
is.
Yeah. And
This
just
is May, so it's.
Yeah. There you go. I think we had I want to say it was pretty close to 2.4.
Yeah, I don't, 2.2?
2.2. She
2.2.
has it up.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you.
That's for that.
Yeah,
and
so we're getting,
liquid.
Well, then
Getting-
there's another.
Then there's another-
another
yeah,
account.
yeah. So, yeah.
This is just the invested part, and then there's
Right.
the liquid part,
So we're getting, interest on that monthly, yeah, so. But just to add on, just to your question on the robocall, so the robocall, just to clarify a little bit, the robocall is what is our code red system, which is truly supposed to be for emergencies, and people have to sign up for that. A lot of people, I think, in the past had signed up with their landlines, and now many of us have switched to only our cell phones, so they still have to then remember to come or get online and register that new cell phone number. Otherwise, if they don't have their landline anymore, it's not going to go very far.
Right.
So that's one thing. And then we had a campaign to do that, actually, a couple of years ago, to get people to re-register.
in the senior center. as
Through
well.
the senior center, correctly. And then, just to say, I think our previous town administrator used the code red a lot for elections and so forth. We have not tended to do that, but that's something certainly we can talk about, so.
Yeah, 'cause I mentioned it, and other people started jumping on it. Now everybody's, why don't we have it? Where did it go? I said, I don't know, I asked.
Well, it's, like I said, it's really intended to be, the code red system is for like a major emergency in town. That's what it's supposed to be used for. We were a little bit more lenient, I think, in the past administration.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we need to take a look at that. If that's a helpful thing, if people still have their names registered or need to get re-registered, I think we can certainly make that work.
I was
for-
looking at it in terms of, this was such a big vote, and it meant so much to so many people. And what was it, like 25% that showed up to vote, a little bit more? But
It was close to
20 to
50.
30.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say
okay,
probably
but
around
that,
30.
to me, for that big a vote, it should have been more people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And for the time that was given for the early voting.
Mhm.
yeah.
So-
We try to accommodate, the town tries to accommodate as many
Yeah.
options as possible.
Right.
And let me just introduce Kate DeSantos. She's the COA
Hi, apologies.
director for the senior center.
Okay,
So
Hi.
this is
Nice to
Joanne.
meet you.
nice to meet you.
Yeah.
She'll get you registered for the senior center.
Yeah. My apologies for being a little.
She's always recruiting. So. But what else have you that you can clarify? And I'm hoping people will tune into this and also listen. And so if we had not met those requirements, so his number one, his primary donation was for this purpose, for a new senior
Right.
center. His secondary was if we didn't do that, then it was going to be divided 4 ways. But since we did do that, we were able to receive, the town, in honor of Red, for a new senior center, did receive that. And it's going to take more money than $2.4 million to build a new senior center.
That's the other question that's been asked, is did you look at just somehow this building is still going to be here? Is there a way to blow out the senior center now and add to that? Or do a Butler building, which would bring the cost down, way down?
And we looked at this.
During the feasibility.
See, I'm jumping in at the
Yeah,
end
no,
here
that's good,
asking.
that's good.
During the feasibility study, we looked at all different options, and this was the best option.
To build new.
presented to build.
Yeah, I mean,
And
our septic doesn't support the people that we have here. The room today holds 75 maximum.
Okay,
We have 2,000 seniors in town, probably 300 active right now,
And only 30 parking spots.
and only 30
Yeah,
parking
that's
spots.
a
So if
tough
we
one.
blow it out, we lose parking. It's already kind of dangerous. People park along the side or across on the gravel, and having fallen in gravel and broken my leg, I know that's not always a safe way to do it. So,
We also looked at where the fire station is right now.
Yes.
If that was being moved and putting a senior center there, and it was more expensive to construct it there, I think, because it maybe had to be 2 stories or for
Had to
some
be 2
reason.
stories, so you
It was
needed-
more expensive than whatever we ended up with on Clark Street, which is no longer the location, but it's a similar
I get it.
build to what we'll end up with on College Highway.
and we also, our goal is to not just build, I mean, they say the number of seniors in most communities is probably going to go up to closer to 40% of the population. So,
I resemble that.
so do
I don't know how
I.
it feels.
So
Well, we're 35% now.
Yeah, so it
Really?
keeps growing since 2 years ago when we did this. So we don't want to build for today. We want to build and make sure we can grow into it, because this wasn't really studied when it was put on the back of the building,
Yeah.
but we weren't in the basement anymore. So I guess we were happy to be above
Yeah.
ground. So,
Yeah.
We're happy to be above ground.
spend enough time underground later.
And so say you get everything in order, and you're gonna go forward, where's the money gonna come from for the mortgage or payments or whatever you wanna call it? It wouldn't be paid for all at once, I'm thinking.
Yeah, we would probably have to, we have a Friends of the Council on Aging who raise money, I mean, they don't raise like millions of dollars, but they're working really hard to raise some money, especially to put equipment into the facility once it is built, because
Yes.
that's one step, right? So, and we've looked at how do we have some kind of capital campaign to contribute to it as well, but really the bulk of it will probably, in all honesty, have to be done through a bond, a 30-year bond, similar to what they were looking to do for the public safety. Lower amount of money because it's a different type of facility,
Yeah.
but you know, it's still.
That's what I'm thinking. I know you have to look to the future, and it's gonna be more than 35% your money will allow for that, but if you put all the bells and whistles that the safety complex had, people won't like that. It's a lot of money, and I know you want it, you want to take care of your community, but some things it's just out of reach.
And there's a number of people on this committee that are seniors on fixed incomes.
Mhm.
So that's not far out of our perspective, you know. But
There's
we
a lot-
also need to build to make sure we attract people, because to build a new building and not attract more seniors.
Yeah.
Because typically it goes up 3 times. So what is 300 today could be 900 once the building is here. So we
Mhm.
want to make sure we can accommodate that growth as well.
The reality of building costs, I know there's been so much about, well, we could get townspeople to throw in their hat and build this, we could be a Butler building. Well, there's codes that need to be followed. It's not as easy. And I mean, if anybody's priced out putting a garage in their backyard, they're over 100,000
Yeah.
for a Butler building garage with electricity. So, it's, when you think of the numbers, they're horrible. I mean, I would love to say we could build something for $1 million.
Do it the Amish
But
way.
when you're you have state requirements, you have town requirements, and then you also have to build a building that's going to last and stay, because if you build something for $5 million and it's obsolete in 2 years, how much did that save? So I think that was, as we were looking at stuff, we were weighing all those in, and I think I'm not on the public safety, but I feel like everybody has done a lot of due diligence to see what could be cut, what things are required, and unfortunately you can't cut. Like an OPM it's a big cost, but it's something that you're required to do. There are things that, maybe 50 years ago, 30 years ago, you could have cut costs and had, Joe neighbor that wants to offer their plumbing services. Well, now they have to have so much insurance, they have to be bonded. You can't just, and you have bids, you have to,
Oh, I
prevailing
understand.
wages. It's such,
Yeah, we have to pay
it's so
prevailing
expensive.
wages.
Prevailing wages to build, I mean, that's a state requirement.
Yeah, it's just,
So,
it's hard. There's a lot more to it than just.
Yeah, and I do think, honestly, with you coming and asking questions, I think that's a really
An
important
amazing-
step. I
It
wish
is.
more people, we had, and I'll speak from the public safety point of view, because I believe I might have answered a couple of your questions too on Facebook, but, the chiefs, I think, made themselves immensely available. We had a video done of that station, we did tours, there were, call into the chiefs if you've got a question at Dunkin' Donuts Day, those kinds of things. And very few people took advantage of it, unfortunately. And so I think what people, talk about is how they interpreted the plans online were not totally accurate, and yet did not, spend time to really do the research and ask directly to the chiefs that were involved. So
because they are on the committee.
they were on the committee. They co-chaired, one of the chiefs co-chaired the
Fire
committee.
chief
So,
and the police chief.
it's just a matter of just saying that, it's best to go to the source and get, come to a meeting,
People are
hear this.
intimidated. You can maybe invite 3 or 4 people to each meeting, send an invitation saying, we'd like your input, please, it's important to us, and this is your week. Because people are terrified to come in. It's like, they're going to look down on me, they're going to throw numbers at me. And people tell me stuff.
Yeah.
So tell them, they're always welcome at our
Well,
meetings.
yeah.
I know,
you know.
I thought about it for a second.
What?
Because there was one that I actually just said, I've had enough of. It was just a circle, and I said, I have to go home now. And I left. But I should have left much earlier. But that's what a lot of people feel. They're very intimidated. You're all situated, you know each other, you're in on all the plans, and how dare I ask? And
Yeah, I mean, the plans are just really estimates for us to kind
Yeah.
of get what
Right.
this could, I mean, it could come in
Yeah.
lower than that, but
Yeah.
we need to have plans that, once
Right.
the final architect is hired and in place, that we can trim down
Right.
from.
And just to say, in terms of intimidation, I mean, everybody around this table, with the exception of Scott and Kate, we're all volunteers. None of us work here at Town Hall.
I understand that. People are nice and you don't know if you don't ask. I get that. I've always worked with the public. I don't have a problem with it. I said, maybe I'm just fresh, but they're just afraid of looking stupid.
I think there's no stupid questions and the more information.
Oh, I've heard
that we
some.
can- Well, but
You can say that,
I feel
we
like
can't say
once
that, right.
Once somebody asks a question, whether they're for it or against
Yeah.
it, at least they hear the truth.
Mhm.
Or an honest opinion of what's happening.
Yep.
And I think
And
that's.
it's not even an opinion,
that's
it's a fact.
A fact, yes.
Right.
That's the most important part, is for
I agree.
people to understand what's going on and be able to make an informed decision. Because it's just frustrating when people haven't been to meetings but are promoting the information.
Can I circle back to one of your questions earlier, especially related to the budget? And my apologies if you spoke about this before I got here, but we are avidly looking for opportunities for additional funding, including like state and federal funding, grant opportunities, even just to supplement a project. So even if it's $100,000 towards a solar project, or right now we're in the process of applying for grants for downstairs to how to figure out how to better utilize our space that we do have.
Mhm.
Those thankfully are still continuing with the state. I don't know on the federal side, but we try and advocate as best as we can for our needs, especially with our state and local legislators, just so that they know what our priorities are, what we're looking to do, and that way, especially budget season right now, they can keep us in mind for different allocations they might be able to do. So.
Yeah, right now, the senior center's funded a lot through grants, you know, so that's, otherwise we probably wouldn't have a need for a senior center, because if it wasn't for the grants. But I mean, and we're thankful for the grants. And we meet with Senator Vilas and Representative Pease, and always put in front of them that this is a need that we have, and if there's money in grants, to please let us know so we can take advantage of those as well.
From
It's
what
a
I
good
know,
point,
they're
Kate.
definitely people. They do everything they can for the public, is what I've seen from them. There's been others in there that I don't think were as approachable, but these guys are always right all over everything available. I know I've written to them and gotten an immediate answer and been happy with that.
So very present, especially at
Yes.
local events and
Yes.
whatnot too. And I will say, we have office hours with them every single month. It's not just open to our senior center population, it's
Yeah.
open to anybody in town that wants to come, or even from outside, given the fact they represent numerous towns. So folks are always welcome to attend, usually on free coffee morning, so they can grab a pastry and some coffee. But we encourage
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays.
Wednesday.
10.
Even a little guy showed up once in a while.
Any other, and you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
I actually would like to,
okay,
if I have
sure.
a question when you're.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's fine. It's an open meeting, it's always open to the public, so
Okay.
It's also always recorded.
it's also recorded too. And that's on East Hampton Media. You can find it on East Hampton Media, under the Southampton, kind of on demand
I think
button.
191 on the Spectrum.
Yeah.
And then
Spectrum.
191 if you're not streaming Spectrum, if you have a box still, you can get it on 191.
Okay.
So, okay,
Okay.
great. All right, thank you again for doing it.
Oh, thank you.
This is the exciting part, approval of minutes. Do you want me to put them back up here? Yeah. Because it, a second. This is, okay. I just made it smaller for you, Chris.
No, thank you.
Because you like to say, could you make that bigger?
Yeah, no, I'm sitting closer this time.
So anybody, Darcy, Libby got these out it's the E's at the
Timely,
end, yes, and very
surprisingly.
timely last time, and I said, did you send them out again?
I sent them out
So,
early.
anybody,
Stupid thing floating around.
I know what that thing is that gets in her way there.
oh, I don't either. I don't see it on my screen.
I know, it just hops all over the place.
it's not my screen, I guess. Okay. Sorry, let's go back to the top. Seem to go to the bottom.
Most of the meeting was about the land use planning.
Right.
Yeah.
Jerry doesn't want to break his neck like this. Huh?
Not if I can help it. It's in bad enough shape as it is. You don't have a printout of it, do you?
I do. Sorry, it's coming. There's page 1. But page 2's on the back. I think there's 3 somewhere, but I'm not sure if there's 3 is here, so. Somehow I didn't get them. Should have
I
been
read
here.
these online, I remember, because the
Okay.
land use planners didn't seem to have their ball in the right court.
Oh, that's right, you weren't here. Okay.
I can make a motion to accept the meeting.
Okay, motion by Darcy to accept it.
Second.
Minutes, second by Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. We're good?
Yes.
All right, back to my agenda here. So, next bullet was to discuss the results of the ballot vote and if there's any impact on our future senior center thoughts and discussion. So, we'll open that up to the team. Obviously, we know that the ballot substantially didn't pass. It was like a 2-to-1 against. So which always says to me, we have to figure out a better way of educating the public. As much as we think we do great, we're obviously missing a number of people. So that's something that we need to focus on. Any other thoughts on?
My thought was that, I'm sorry.
No, you go.
Just initially, in a lot of ways, this was the trial balloon, right? I mean,
Mhm.
for us, we sort of wanted to get a sense of where the town was.
A temperature reading, right?
We took a reading,
Yeah.
and now we need to interpret the reading, and so it is what it is.
Yep. Somebody else was gonna, Darcy.
I was just gonna say, in our fundraising group, we had talked about putting together like a new, like, almost like a marketing campaign of who the senior center is, who, you know, what's the group, what are we asking for the future senior center. And I think that's something that maybe, you know, would also help this committee to just make a more present, like, so people know who we are, what we're doing. And I think at this point, I agree that this town has spoken, and I think we need to get more education out there, promote what senior center is, what it does, and what it has to offer, and what we hope for our future, and, you know, try to move forward with that. But I think we need to definitely get some information out there.
I also think people thought they were voting for $28 million because the amount wasn't in there. And they weren't voting for that. They were voting for the OPM and the architect. And then, so that's more the misinformation that was on Facebook. You're not voting for that. And the handouts that went out at the dump said voted for
Yeah.
the
$28
million
dollar
you
tax
weren't.
hike or something.
And you clarified it on Facebook.
Numerous times.
Well, and
No.
some people were
But it gets-
posting the 30 cost at the end of 30 years. Well, if you buy a house, it's gonna cost you
Right.
double.
But the tax base was based on the purchase, you
Yeah.
know, that price.
The amount was not on the
Ballot.
ballot due to a state law.
Yeah, it cannot be.
Is that
on
why
the-
it can't be for
Right.
debt
That's-
exclusion?
It can be for debt exclusion, so that school was on
No,
there.
no, for
but
an
it cannot
override.
be for an override.
No, just the opposite. This is the debt exclusion.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just the
So it
opposite.
couldn't be.
Correct.
You've been reading
I
Facebook.
figured it had to be some
I've just been
reason.
reading too much. I'm sorry, correct.
Okay.
For a debt exclusion.
Yeah.
You do not have the amount on the ballot.
You don't think the extravagances that were listed put people off? Because I saw a lot of granite counters, I don't have granite counters.
There aren't any.
Well, the way the list went out, it said a couple of sunroofs, it said a full two-story window. There was a list.
It's a one-story building. We intentionally did
And-
not make a two-story building.
And what else was
The
listed?
list was created by
yeah.
someone not on the committee.
Yeah.
Okay,
It wasn't
it
a
was-
page from the
Yeah.
The
cost
cedar
analysis.
fencing for 86,000 or something in
And what
that
those
range.
are illustrative drawings from an architect. It's
Yeah.
not the final plan.
But this is how it went out. That's what
I understand.
people saw, and
Right.
that's where I
It's,
saw a
there's
lot
no
of
granite
upset people.
countertops. There's not a gigantic
Workout room.
gym. It is a
You could have
400
gold.
square foot.
You could have gold leaf countertops, and it's not gonna change the $27 million.
No, just,
Right,
it's a
right.
400 square foot.
So is it because of the pictures that
center.
were, for example?
Some of
I
them.
guess, I don't know.
I know, I saw a list.
But the
Somebody posted a
architect-
list, and I was.
Right.
The architectural conceptual drawing did put a fence around it. Yes, that's true. So that is misleading. I regret that they did that, but that's how they present their drawings. But there are many misconceptions and misreadings of the cost analysis that are in there. So, you know, there's reasons why there has to be separate secure locations for police, even if police and fire are in the same building. You've got certain requirements for the police just for security safety.
That part I
Yeah.
understood, but I didn't like the separate locker rooms. I know my husband was a firefighter in Springfield forever. But he said, you know, we had women, but we were just respectful. They would say, it's our time for the showers, or it's your time for the showers, and you made it work rather than,
Well,
Trying
again,
to
there's
do
certain
that.
requirements that are there
That's-
now.
I know.
Yeah, so,
Women are
That was
comfortable
also
with that.
before the time of 24-hour shifts.
right, yeah.
no, he did 24s.
Well, anyway.
Anyway,
we don't
we're
need
not
to
the
talk-
public safety,
no,
so
we
we
don't
don't
need
have
to-
all the
yeah,
answers.
Get off on
Yeah,
that
I
track.
know,
so.
I know, but that's what I saw, is
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
howling about all the extravagances.
Right, and no matter how much we tried to counteract that, it didn't seem to
penetrate.
override the noise. And I personally did not find that it was going to be useful for the public safety complex to also stand outside the dump and hand out flyers. So we chose not to do that. So maybe that was a mistake, but I think, you know, we tried the best we could to get out the facts and.
Even on the flight.
The public safety building funding is gonna be on the ballot in the fall. Is
Well,
that right?
I don't know.
We
We're
don't
gonna
know.
have,
They
we're gonna
have
have
to
to have a
regroup.
meeting. I don't, after this, I wouldn't guarantee that. I don't know. I think we have to talk about that. That had been our thinking, but I don't know if we will go forward. I have no idea.
But
It's
it's-
good to know what weighed on people's thoughts.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
I mean-
appreciate that, because
So,
that
yeah.
is something to work towards
Yeah.
correcting on
Well,
our side.
And I guess, you know, it's interesting. I mean, it's sort of one of those where, you know, you get criticized because, I mean, as public officials, I accept that, you know. You get criticized if you don't put all the information out there, and so people don't have enough information. I think in an overabundance of caution, we put out everything we had, and
Yeah.
that caused even other confusion. So, I don't know, the transparency, I mean, it's there for everybody to see and question,
But
and
it was all,
unfortunately.
it was all false. It was all fake news then, for what people, that's what's so frustrating.
Yeah.
It wasn't true.
A lot of that.
A lot of the listing of granite countertops and skylights and all that stuff is not
And there's a
right.
skylight to
There's a
reduce
skylight for the-
electricity so
yeah.
that, you know.
It's a
there's
central room for
natural
the
lighting.
fitness center, so that did have a skylight, correct. But all those prices, there's nothing final in terms of the, you know, the cost of any of that stuff until we get the architect, you know, really drawing this out for us. So these are estimated.
Well, you have to have something to present
You
before
gotta
you
start
go
with
there to, it may not come up that high, but, you know, you gotta have the town approve
Yeah.
a certain amount. I mean, we can't really do anything from a senior center perspective until we know that we can't put together a capital campaign and hire a capital campaign person if we never get the money approved. And we don't wanna waste money from Red's will towards something that we would better be happy to see. And we have as I mentioned, a friends group that will help us, you know, raise some funds. And fortunately, they'll also be able to pay for some marketing materials that we, you know, public safety doesn't have that Friends of the Public Safety.
Yep.
And the Friends of the Council on Aging has been there for decades, so they're instrumental in working closely with Kate and her staff and the COA board, and it gives us some funding to, I think, try to figure out the best way we can reach the public and what can we do differently.
Yeah, I think just back on Darcy's question or comment about trying to do some sort of a marketing initiative, if you will, to try and better explain the senior center going forward so that we've got an increased chance of public support. I think that's certainly a good idea. I mean, I think, and again, I'll just say from the public safety point of view, we tried a variety of things. We know that not everybody's on Facebook. Definitely not. We've tried to make the website more usable and direct people to the website and putting various reports on the website. A lot of people don't look at the website. We've had articles in the Gazette. We've had East Hampton Media do a video tour of the police and the fire station. I'm just trying to think, a variety of other. We had a public
Dunkin' Donuts.
Public forum. We had
forum.
a public forum. We had call into the chiefs, all those kinds of things. So we've tried a variety of things, and that still wasn't enough. So there's got to be something in addition to what we tried that maybe we'll go through better.
I think there's a gap between, yes, we know we need it, and where it was at, and people, I mean, and people don't, and educating why it's there versus
correct.
why it's
I think the cost
10 million.
The cost is really, the cost idea, the cost projection was what killed it more so than the need.
Yes,
I think the need part has gotten through, the message, that part of the message has gotten through better, I think. But I think the cost savings.
Another question I kept hearing is, it looks like they got a Boston architect or whoever to render a drawing. Why didn't they pick somebody from Northampton or Springfield, something more local when we know them?
So it goes out to bids because it's over, so whatever the competitive biddings are, and
so that's how it's done.
And that's, so it's, I don't even remember if anybody locally
I think there was one other
bid on it.
One other company.
That was just a question I heard.
Yeah, no, I saw that as
The
well.
architect for this building, when we did the renovation, what was it, 20 years ago? They were out of Boston. He was fabulous. And he,
Well, for this building?
yes, he was.
Libby's got history of being on buildings.
He was great. We had another architect that was local. That wasn't as good. So you just want the best person where they are, regardless of where they are.
And it does go out for bid, so it's advertised locally in the Gazette, for example, but it's also advertised on all the required state websites where it has to be, so that people can know that there's a job out there that they can bid on.
Okay.
So that comes in, and then there's an evaluation process of the proposals that are received.
Okay, thank you.
I think ideally if we could have somebody that responded, that's local and understands, that would be great, but you can't control that.
Yeah, I just heard it
Yeah.
more than 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
So why?
And all of the pre stuff is conceptual. It's
Mhm.
an idea. It's something that's thrown out there that they get clip art. They didn't design that specific face
Mhm.
or.
I mean, for architectural plans, they're probably over $1 million to get them ready for build, to go out to build. I mean, we spent $60,000 on our example design, so we're nowhere near, the final stage, but we got a good concept on size. They started out at 15,000 square feet. We said, cut it down to 12,000. Public safety did the same. So we try to direct them to make sure that they're, in line with we'd love 15,000 square feet, but we don't need 15,000 square feet. So that's again from the senior center perspective. So if we have to cut that down, we can cut that down, but you don't want to cut it so much that you're adding on when the costs go up in another 10 years. And the cost per square foot to build is $1,000 per square foot. So that's an easy calculation. So if you get a 10,000 square foot building, it's 10 million. So, I mean, that's.
I keep looking at Koyuk just built theirs, what was it, like maybe 8 or 10 years ago? And it was monstrous, and it's just adequate now.
Yeah, I mean, they grow up, and same thing
They
with
do,
some of
but
the others.
They have activities that people want. They want bingo, they want to have the lunches and all that, so it's usually very crowded, but that's what you want. You want people to go there.
Oh, we had bingo.
Do you really?
Wednesdays.
We just can't have,
We just can't have anything else.
because we have one room, so.
Bingo.
One room, so we can't cross program.
Have you been to the senior center?
Have I ever what?
Been down to the senior
Yeah, I
center?
have.
Oh, good. Okay.
If she voted, she's been there.
Oh, that's true, that's true. So, yeah, I think the good part of a bad vote is that I think it will teach us a lot of what we need to try to do to help get the message out, because I think we all feel like we do a lot and open a lot of public things. and people don't come. And then, so it's almost like you have to go to them because it doesn't seem like they're able always to come to us, so. And speaking of which, we have a public forum on the 31st, correct? So we have hired a land use planner to help design where things will go on that 40-plus acre parcel. Do you know where the property that was purchased,
Yes.
right? That was
Who's the we? We have hired.
The town.
with the town.
The town.
Yeah,
I just
the
wanna
town.
make that
Yeah,
clear.
Yeah, okay, good.
Where's
Thank
the
you for-
forum?
The forum is May 31st at Norris, I'm guessing.
Yep.
Okay.
Cater, Scott, you wanna, Darcy? I'm not part of the forum group, so,
I'm not either.
We're out of the loop.
okay.
Yeah.
Scott? The forum is Saturday, a week from Saturday,
31st, 10 to 12.
10 to 12
10 to
at
12.
Norris. And again, that's just another, it's still an input from the community?
Yep, still gathering input.
Okay, so it's another input session, so people can see what some of the thoughts are from the last session. You know, where would the firehouse and police station be? Where would the senior center be? Will there be senior or affordable housing on the property? Will there be a playing field on the property? What we wanted to hear from all of us that live here and pay taxes, what we feel the best use of the property is.
So did they make any different layout since we last met? Because there was we had a lot of discussion about where the senior center was shown. And I don't know, is that going to be something that they do after the public forum?
Yeah, they're still determining it. They're gonna talk to Peter, and they'll come in probably in June to talk to the PSPC.
The what?
And
I'm sorry, not.
And the senior.
SCBC.
Okay, so you're still, so it's gathering more? Okay.
Yeah.
And when is the target when the land use planners will be complete and what their recommendations are?
Hopefully the fall,
Okay.
the final drawing, hopefully.
Well, based on that, the last minute meetings, are they refocusing now on the safety complex and the senior center rather than affordable housing?
We didn't get a meeting.
Well,
They
what's
haven't
in
met.
the- Oh, you two.
Yeah,
The
there was
met.
committee.
It was requested, but we haven't met.
Yeah, the internal one has met in a couple weeks.
All right.
We had tried to see if somebody from PDPC could come in today, but one
Oh,
is
that's
on paternity leave and the other one is in France or something.
Yeah, no, DNF will come in June.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you
Rather
explain who
than
that is?
Dodson and Flinker.
So the actual land use planner themselves, the company that we hired, the firm,
Yeah.
will come in to this body to have a discussion about it. Yeah.
So you assume that 31st is going to be like a similar thing we had the last time, just trying to get more people involved? Is that, there's not
more
really any
presentation,
it
and
is.
they have to present what they have so far and kind of give some input on that and kind of start narrowing it down a
So
little
not so
bit.
many work groups
Yeah,
as
right.
last time?
Yeah.
Okay.
And see, they would have had since then, we would have done the survey, those that answered
Right.
the survey, so I'm assuming that the results of the survey will be explained, and,
Yeah.
what is it, what ideas did people come up with that they wanted to see that hadn't been thought of, maybe, or additional
Right.
amenities, or whatever. So I think it's more that level at this point in time, so.
So Joanne,
Yeah.
there was a survey from the land use planners about what you would like to see on that property. Did that message ever get to you?
No.
Okay. So here we think again, we believe we're trying to reach out openly and with transparency to the community, and yet we find out that so many people don't know about it, and that's our biggest challenge.
And I look at everything. I have days where I really can't go out, so I go through, and I'm not one to sit there and play games, so I'll go through the website, I'll go through what's on the forum and what's going on.
Okay.
And then
Yeah,
I
I've seen
get
this on
to tell my
Facebook.
neighbors sort of thing.
Yeah, this isn't, it's not posted on Facebook, right?
Should it
But
be?
it should be
As a public
posted on,
information?
It's on the website, isn't
it's
it?
on the
Yeah, but
website.
I mean,
but-
I
And,
wouldn't,
did
I
it-
wouldn't normally go to the website unless I was
Did it get on the
looking
town
for
page, Scott?
something.
On the, is the forum on the town
Yeah, it
Facebook
is.
page?
Oh,
I
yeah,
think it is.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's
It is
right
on
there.
there.
It's like you just only get half the information.
I was gonna say, I
I don't
didn't see
understand.
that.
I didn't either.
So typically, somebody from the community page would take the stuff from the town page and put it up on the community page, but it doesn't seem like that.
Well, maybe it was, it just, you
No, I don't
you
think
only
so.
get fed half the information anyway, especially if you never post anything yourself, like me.
Well, you can, yeah, just go to the community page and see what's there. I don't recall that it's been posted there, but if it's on our website,
Is it gonna be recorded? Because I know some of us have conflicting
yeah.
events that.
Many of us are in a fundraiser that day,
Yeah.
morning.
Yep.
Is it being recorded?
Trying to get you,
Okay.
Okay. You're looking to see if it's, yeah, I haven't seen it on the community site, but usually it's the administrators that take it, put it up there.
10 to
We're not
12.
responsible for
10
the
to 12.
community site, so we'll try to get that information up there
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
not,
not
I'm not
catching
seeing it. I don't
on the
think
community
I'm
page.
buried somewhere on the
It's
town.
probably
On the
buried.
town page, okay.
I thought I saw it there
Facebook, I'm not
yesterday.
seeing it.
Say that again?
Current events, right? Under current
On the
events,
website?
on the event section?
I'm just.
Looking at the
on
town.
On the
town
homepage, it should be on the-
Facebook page,
Yeah, the town Facebook
they have
page
the
too.
election
I don't do that.
results, Joe Slattery.
So it's definitely featured news and events on the website.
Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't
that's-
go on the website.
That's definitely there.
Yeah,
And then other things come up
What are you
above,
looking at?
so it gets buried
the
on my
town.
town.
I
Facebook
feel like
page.
it should definitely be on the Facebook, because I agree with Libby, I don't go on the town page, I have the town Facebook pages,
Oh, I see.
so,
Yeah.
I never go
I don't
on the
do
webpage
Facebook at
unless I'm
all, so-
looking for,
you know, so
I
I
don't
think
either except
if
to
it's
look.
on,
I
yeah,
don't even do
Post.
that.
that's how you can.
you can kind of.
Yeah,
scroll
Instagram
probably a
is
good
the only
idea
way
to
you can
do that.
find
Yeah,
anything.
I'm not catching it on the town Facebook page, Scott, either.
Because,
Post right
yeah,
now?
it will be there shortly, so to make sure everybody
Yeah.
knows. At least get it on the Facebook page and,
You can share it too.
Well, can you put a notice on that sign out in front of
Mhm.
Town Hall?
Well, you
And-
get the Lions Club, it's the Lions Club sign.
No,
You
I'm
can
not
get
talking, you've got a A-frame.
yeah, the
Oh, the
A-frame one
A-frame,
too.
yeah, a little small. We've also got the Mothers Club sign now back
Yeah,
up
that's
on
seen
the,
it. And also the police electric sign, I mean, is there a way that can something, or is that?
yeah, it kind
Not
of
enough
runs
ink.
out of batteries in a while, but we do have the Mothers Club sign. I can check and see that if they don't have anything to post, we could put that up there.
My problem is the posting stuff on Facebook or on the town website is passive. And if you don't go there, you have no idea.
Mhm.
So we need to develop ways of getting information
Proactive,
out
right.
to people.
True, and you know, people talk about mailings, what great, but you know, what, you got 4,500 households, that's like, you know, $4,500. So
Right.
where's that money
It's
coming
like
from?
70 cents of mailing.
Exactly, I
Can
mean, the
you
cost
put
of
it in
postage is, you know, crazy. too.
With like the bill, town, tax bills.
We've tried to do that
Time
occasionally,
bills.
include it in a tax bill.
Because we just, in the last census, we included something about the senior center and the update from the, on either what's going on in the senior center and what's going on with the senior center building committee. And that was inserted in every town census that went out request. You know, some people, get it and toss it and don't even look at it. And
I just know I saw some blank faces with, I said, "You are voting, aren't you?" When?
yeah,
They knew nothing, because they, like I said, no children in the schools, no Facebook.
right. And it's consistently the third
Yeah.
Tuesday in May is when elections are, so.
But it's also too, the school did a great job publicizing things. I mean, through the PTO and, they really got the word out. So I'm surprised that, parents weren't aware, because they certainly
Knew they were
publicized it a
voting
lot
on
at the
something,
school.
yeah.
So-
I think if you weren't if you're not a parent.
No, I know,
yeah.
but for the school question,
Yeah,
I would
I
thought
think
that, that did attract a lot of people.
I will say, a lot of their messaging didn't come until like this past weekend, just in general, so if you
Oh.
didn't see it, you kind of missed it.
Like the postcard that they sent out
I
to every
did get-
household?
I
That
think
was
got
a little
that,
bit earlier,
like
yeah.
a week and a half ago maybe, yeah. But it's
I
so
got two
hard
of them.
because there's
You
so much
got copies.
messaging going out.
Yeah. I mean, and we get a lot of postcards,
Yeah.
color postcards, and so it's a challenge.
And at another time, there's been discussion of sending out a mailing with the tax bill, since that it's being sent out anyways, and
Mhm.
including a flyer with the tax bills. And is that still an option?
It's an option. have to work with the treasurer, and then usually the select board has to approve that. Yes, it's an option. But depending on the timing, I mean, yeah, so.
I mean,
I would think that would be
So be
something
the August is the next tax bill.
to pursue. And I think, in my mind, the other question is, I think there's been a recognition that getting the town to approve the money for the public safety building is a priority. And then, do we want to go up, when we find out what they're going to do in the fall, the timing, I mean, obviously, the more often we put out positive information at the senior center, the better, right? But in terms of making a push, do we want to do it this summer, or if they're going to be doing public safety building in the fall, do we want to wait till after that's decided before we go?
yeah, that's something we
It's
definitely
like-
have to
it's
talk
like a
about
big
and decide.
decision.
Yeah, yeah. But, and, you know, just, I always remember somebody saying, you have to take 7 no's before you say, okay, they
Yeah.
really mean no. So,
Yeah.
1 no, better education, you may get a different result the next time. So, hopefully, nobody gives up. But we hear things, we modify, and we try to do a better education job. But I think, I mean, it comes down to you run for office, you go knocking on doors. I mean, that may come down to people going out and talking to other people about it, to knock on a few doors. If people answer their doors anymore, but.
I don't mean to be
Solar.
repetitive, but you know, the concept of being able to put a flyer in everybody's hands with their tax bill, it just has to be attractive for me. And if the next opportunity comes in August, then would it be something that the public safety building might use in August if they're going to be putting something on the ballot in the fall?
I think it's hard too because we also have a voting population that doesn't own in town. So, I mean, Southampton Meadows, for example, most of them rent, but they vote in town. So just even trying to figure out how to better filter some of the information, whether it's them allowing us to post town-specific VIP dates within their common areas. We struggle with it at the senior center, even just letting them know what events are coming up that we think are important for them to know, like Memory Cafe or health fairs and that type of thing. So it's just, there's little holes in different places.
Yeah.
It's just figuring out how to fill them.
Yeah.
And it is, it's a great method to get information in people's hands, but if there's questions, what's the step after that?
Right.
You know, I think that's the key
And I think
part.
too, it's a little bit, I won't say it's easier, but you've got a bit of an advantage by having a friends group associated with the senior center, which does not exist with the public safety building committee. And as members of that town committee, you know, we've gotten all sorts of restraints, I guess, or constraints, I guess I would say, in terms of being able to come out and, you know, we can't as a committee person come out and say, vote yes. I can come out as Chris on my own personal time and do it. But as a committee person, I'm restrained from
You have to be neutral.
doing that. I can't influence a vote that way. So
Right.
we wanted to put in a flyer in the, I think it was when the March tax, or somewhere around that March special town meeting. We wanted to put a flyer in the tax bills at that time and had to consult with legal, and legal said, you're too close to the election. It's going to look like you're influencing the vote. So we couldn't. So we've got, I don't know. I'll just say we're trying the best we can.
It's not easy, is I think the bottom line. And
So,
Do you remember the timeline for too close to the vote?
I don't know. Scott, you may know better than I don't remember.
And it's that, and then using town resources.
Town resources to do.
So it's one thing, as a committee member at a committee meeting to come out in favor of something. It's another thing to have the perception of using town resources to sway a vote.
What's it
that
cost
makes
to
sense.
insert a flyer in the tax bill?
Paper,
Whether it's a penny or more.
Yeah,
they-
it's
they-
influence and
Mhm.
financial.
paper and ink.
I mean, it's say somebody wanted to do it, or friends, that somebody forms.
That it came from like
friends-
a friends organization. And sometimes
Right.
there's some restriction in the
Yeah,
tax
we
bills
won't be able
that
to
it
do
has
that
to
for a
be.
private organization.
Yeah.
It'd have to be.
So that's the
town.
catch-22.
So that you can't put an insert in the town tax bill.
You have to be very careful.
You
So you
can.
could like announce the date of an election
Yeah.
and let them know where to find information, but
Right.
that'd probably be it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
You can't say vote yes or vote no.
No,
You
right.
can put information in the tax bill.
Yeah, and you have to be careful about putting out information about how a yes or a no vote may impact the town. So vote,
Property taxes.
if you don't vote yes, it'll be 10 teachers laid off.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful about that too, about the impact.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's hard. I mean, you've got to give enough information, but you've got to, there's a fine line that you've got to, not cross, both legally and ethically to do that, so. The old radio stations we used to have are not, I mean, there's a couple around. We could get on a radio program, but I don't know, I mean, I don't listen to the radio very much. I mean, I don't know, we've tried a bit with, East Hampton Media's been helpful. We haven't done a lot with, Channel 40, Channel 22. Maybe we could try more TV station broadcast, whatever their weekend news update or something is for the towns, if they still do that, I don't know.
WWLP, I see all the time where Myrtle's got a vote coming up on the water commission, this one's got a vote.
Yeah.
That's why I had said maybe if USW.
That's something we could certainly,
blurb.
Yeah.
pursue. We didn't focus on that, but that's maybe an idea, another strategy.
Yeah, just another way. There's gotta be one way that'll work.
Well, I think the point is it's multiple ways. I mean,
Yeah,
there is no,
It's not
there's
one
no magic
size.
bullet. You've got to attack it from all
I just
possible
noticed
ways.
that cultural chaos is coming to East
I know.
Hampton again because I see
they're
the
all over
signs all
me too,
along.
and then I saw
Sure.
them put it on my
And I'm
calendar.
thinking, like Jerry said, the A-frame here, I mean, if I'm coming up, if I'm heading this way on Route 10, first of all, you're coming around the bend, you gotta make sure there are people who are gonna make a left on East Street, or people from East Street, or you're, and then I see the sign and I go, did that say the town? Yeah, and usually I'm by it by the time.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying those little, for like in East Hampton, the cultural chaos thing, if you go from here to East Hampton, you're gonna see it 7, 8 times.
Today.
Yeah, and you don't even know,
Doesn't even
doesn't
know.
even know, it's probably too small for you to read when you're driving about when it is, but it's in your mind that it's coming up,
Sure.
And those kind of things maybe, other than this one spot, which is a tough spot when you're driving.
Don't
to-
disagree. I don't disagree.
Yeah.
It's just to say that, and that's where the school ended up doing, is they had through their PTO,
Yeah.
or whomever,
all those
they were
They
able-
did, they did a pretty good job.
they were
with that.
able to purchase signs and do that. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. There's a bit of luck because there is a Friends of Senior Center. There is not such a thing for the public safety
yeah,
complex.
right.
Because you can't spend the money.
So unless,
Yeah.
people wanted to fork out hundreds of dollars out of their own pocket to buy
Right.
yard signs, it
Yep.
didn't happen. So,
Well, then you gotta get people to put them out in the yard.
There wasn't gonna change a vote.
it wasn't gonna.
It didn't change,
wasn't
yeah. They didn't, after all of that effort,
It didn't
it
change.
still went down. Not
Oh,
by
we
as
don't know
much,
that
but-
it didn't change.
Well, I mean, the axiom is, right?
Might have,
Yard signs don't vote, people do,
Yes.
right? So, I mean, I agree with you, it's in their heads, but
Yeah.
it still doesn't
Or if it's
guarantee a
just to
vote.
come to a meeting, so there's a public forum and
Yeah.
come to that meeting,
Yeah.
not swaying a vote or anything, but, it's probably too late now for the public forum. And again, even though there's some representation of the senior center there, it's not, it'd be a tough, harder sell to use that money from the Friends to do for the public forum.
No, I agree.
But, which is not, I mean, they have a lot more money than they ever did in the past. In the last few years, they've done a great job, but it's not endless, so.
Right.
Okay, anything else on? So I think we have on the agenda, we kind of touched on it, committee preparing for the fall special town meeting. I think we need to kind of see what's happening with public safety, and maybe we can get together with Christina and Ian, if they, and you, Scott, to talk about, so we have a good sense.
Would there be a preference if there isn't public safety on the ballot in the fall? Would there be a preference of moving forward or not? Or
I would say yes, personally, and it sounds rude. I know that the town wants the public safety, but I feel like if we push this off for another couple of years, people are gonna be like, what the heck?
Yeah,
They
because
got
people
this
have already,
money.
even the flyer
Why
at the
aren't you?
station said,
The
they
seniors are
lamented
getting
the
rude,
seniors once again, and
screwed.
that's not true.
It's not true.
And, but,
So we guess we have to decide that.
yeah,
We have to
that's,
decide
Once
that.
the committee,
That would
once the
be,
public safety figures out their next steps.
Well,
That
I
would
think
be something
you're-
we'd wanna
yeah,
understand and vote on.
Irrespective of that, what do you, I mean, I think you'd end up not doing just for you wouldn't go for the OPM and architect, you'd go for the actual building.
Right.
Right.
I have a question, can we use some money out of the Parsons Fund to do a mass mailing for the town?
I would go to the Friends before I used to touch the
Yeah.
the Parsons. We have the Friends group that can help us do that without touching that money.
Why can't
So-
we move forward with the OPM and the design with the money from the estate? Because we run the risk of spending that money and then getting.
Yeah, we could
Getting a no
we could
vote.
Get an RFP put together and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and then, get ready to, with the bid documents, but unless the town
Right.
says yes to
Yeah,
the
I
building.
And then how does
You
that
don't want to
lay
have
out in the
spent the
future?
money and
Then
then
we
you have
spent the-
drawings
yeah.
sitting on a
The
shelf.
donation and
On a
we're
shelf.
sitting.
Not on a shelf, they'll
And it will be-
be somewhere in the cloud.
So she knows what we're talking about. She probably doesn't know what OPM and RFP is.
Yeah, Ted's
He's been
been.
whispering.
I said owner projects manager, I should
Yeah.
have said AKA
It's
OPM
required,
is a
yes.
requirement.
But I mean, we wouldn't actually go out for recruiting such entities, but all that paperwork can get prepared, am I right, Scott?
Right. We could
So-
continue to do that. I mean, this is just me as an individual speaking. I would move forward in the fall, but we would have to do a lot of stuff in the summer and agree to do that, either working with the Friends organization or whatever to get the message out better and the correct information out, even though it was there, it was,
Yeah.
well, and we already saw that some of the estate monies was misconstrued on the Facebook page too.
Seriously, yeah.
I think the shared OPM is probably not gonna happen at this point.
I agree with you.
So.
The shared, no.
Shared
Yeah.
OPM,
No.
you're right.
Yeah, so originally, the idea had been to share the owner's project manager between the two committees to save
Save
money. But knowing that the requirements for a public safety building are very different from a senior center, we'd have two architectural firms. But now with this, I think I wouldn't hold up getting an OPM
Right.
for the senior center.
Yeah, I
And
see
trying
us
to make it
doing
shared anymore,
parallel
it's not worth it.
courses. Now, I wouldn't hold back.
Yeah.
I mean, the town didn't seem to be that much in support of a new public safety unless it's really inexpensive. And I don't know what that number is.
I don't know what that
I don't
would
even
be.
think it's 15 million, even though somebody threw that out, but,
Did people actually though tell you why they didn't vote for it besides the money? From what I got strongly from everybody is, why should they have a gym? I can't afford a gym
I got that on the
membership.
way down here
Yeah, and
from my
why-
neighbor.
Why are they getting that
The way he
fence?
flagged me down.
Yeah.
Why are they building a 1,000-foot gym?
Yes, and that fence is gonna only last 10 years. That's the timeframe for Cedar.
That's
So
what
just,
I
I'm gonna say two things, and then we really should, it's not worth going into
No.
great
I know.
detail, but the square footage of the fitness center is 400 square
400
feet.
square
It will
feet.
have a treadmill, some weight benches, and maybe a couple of ropes or something.
and isn't that required by firefighters to have that available
Well,
to them? or-
some,
I don't know.
I don't know that for sure.
Okay.
Some have it in their union contracts, do they?
Under 111F, if any injury happens to a police or firefighter, we have to pay 100% of their salary, and we have to pay 100% of their medical bills. So an investment of a 400 square foot gym that might stop one or two injuries, which can cost upwards of $500,000, is a very wise investment.
Yeah. The cedar fence is nothing permanent. Like I said, that was an architecture drawing. We want some
Yeah.
sort of barrier, most likely from the houses that are next door, that street next door. They're definitely going to want a little bit of barrier, I would think. And so there will be something. But that was an architectural rendering.
It was the expensive frills that were put out there, and that's what they're
Yes.
saying. Why should they
Right,
get this?
they were.
Why should they get that? And we don't have that, and they don't want to overextend, where there's obviously going to be more
Yeah,
overrides
and
from
as
the law.
much as we've tried to say that these are not the final thing, these are the conceptual designs that have to now be translated to actual
Yeah.
blueprints.
That's when we
Yeah.
listen to the public and say, are there areas where we can reduce the total cost? But at this point, this was the estimate that was
Yeah.
provided by the architect that was hired by the town to do this. And
I would be, I want to look at the feasibility study and make sure it doesn't come across as being extravagant
right,
for the senior center
Right.
before, because that's the basis of ours. I mean, I don't think it was extravagant, but, I mean, there's probably a cost breakdown that's probably a standard form, and it might say some type of countertop that we could save money on, that type of thing. So before we go before the public and ask for that amount of money, we have to.
I mean, I'd have to be a little bit careful about that, because the senior center needs to be a welcoming environment. It's not a utilitarian
right.
I agree.
facility.
Right.
And if we're just gonna have a Butler building with the bare minimum, not a lot of people are gonna wanna be there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, like I
agree.
said,
agree.
You need to have
Yeah.
good services and
I
you need to have a
agree.
welcoming.
I just don't want it to
purposes.
come across as extravagant.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you want to spoil your seniors. These other guys are at work, and they don't have all these things at work.
But
I think-
other than the fitness center, I'm not sure what other things people think were frills, because, having a decontamination room, having a place to, have lunch, there's one kitchen, there's a shared spaces for community room, there's a training room for when they have their interdepartmental meetings and other meetings with other fire and police departments. So they've tried to look at shared spaces as well and not make extra spaces, but just because the fence got in the way and a few other things, all of a sudden it exploded into
Yep.
misinterpretation, I would say. I think one thing too, I was just thinking about something, I just blanked it out, sorry. Something, Scott, you were just saying.
About
The gym?
the Butler building kind of thing and the warm
Well,
atmosphere.
no, it was more just.
You want to make the seniors' place more
Yeah,
extravagant.
so I mean, there's, different.
But not
different-
extravagant, but just
Invite-
welcoming,
Different
right?
needs,
I would
inviting,
rather
yeah.
make it
Yeah.
extravagant
Yeah.
if people deserve
Yeah,
it.
but things got,
Give them a break.
interpreted,
Yes.
for, I don't know where the granite countertops, there are no granite, it's quartz. It's like less than my kitchen at home. So believe me, they've gone for, the basics of that. And that kind of interior furnishing, whether it's the refrigerator or whatever else, has all got to be decided as we go forward. There's nothing set in stone in terms of buying something at that level. This is the concept of what needs to be there and what these anticipated costs were, given inflation and when it would actually be ready to be put in there, which is like 3 years down the road.
Can you
So-
go to look on Facebook for the 10 people who posted the most, because I can probably list them in my head, and invite them to the meeting? So you can explain, this is really what was here. Can we talk about it?
Well, one of them kept posting as anonymous.
I know.
Yeah, I mean.
But it's not anonymous, you can figure out who it is, I think.
No,
I heard.
I can't.
The administrators can, the administrators.
Yes,
Anyway.
I don't know.
We don't
I
need
feel
to.
like what I'm hearing, especially as we move forward, and I think this has been a good learning experience for me because I'm newer to town, I've only been here a few years. Just messaging is so critical in how we move forward and making sure that people know that this is the actual factual information. This is, you know what I mean? It's, even with how we talk about, there were so many questions and what the ballot was. We had it posted. We answered so many questions just in terms of like, this is what this is in reference to. You can find it on the website, navigating those conversations. Grassroots information is so important, especially where we are. A lot of our folks are not online. They don't want to be, especially with the political climate right now. So having those conversations, I found it's been extremely beneficial for me because they're asking questions I never thought about. So I think
I think we
more-
can do things in the senior center
Absolutely.
with the clientele that comes in and
Right.
have sessions and not just one every 3 months or
Yeah,
something, but yeah.
Messaging's really critical in having those constructive conversations. It was eye-opening for me just in terms of how much people want to have that information, but just don't know how to necessarily navigate towards it.
But I'm going to quote Joanne. Joanne said, extravagant is
But I wonder if
I wasn't here.
Kate,
No,
as you're,
I truly believe that, and I was a big one with that on Facebook when I saw the extravagant list and the picture, and I said, yeah, I didn't have that at work. We went to work, and we weren't catered to or whatnot. It's a big joke with the firemen and the police officers going in, one has donuts, one hangs out and with their pillow. And I don't like that when that's said. I don't. But that's the perception. When people saw the extravagant list, that's when everybody was going off. And that's why I said, I specifically asked, I said to my husband, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And he was just, I don't know who put that on. If that's all true, you're not going to get it.
Right. And that's the key, is if it was all true.
Kate, I was just going to add one thing to you. As you're talking to people, I would be curious if there's a way to, sort of fold it into the conversation. I'd like to know how people get, how do seniors get their news?
Yeah.
Where do they go? Do they watch 22? Where do they go? How do they get their news? How can we get news out better from their point of view? Other than,
I'm happy
those,
to
I mean,
I was thinking over the weekend, it feels like it was a weekend. How do we survey and find out just that information, whether it's the seniors or the 40-somethings or, you know?
I think with us too, we have such a small subset that actually come into the senior
Right.
center.
Right, yeah.
In terms of the subset of the population, and a number of our folks are from outside towns. So even just like, how did they hear about us? Like, how are they getting their information? They could be doing something different in West Hampton that we're not doing here, at least with how we navigate communication in general. I think we don't see the pickleball folks. You know what I mean?
Right.
A lot of them just go to the pickleball, and so, but we don't see them at the senior center. It's a great conversation to have, and I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, I think it
Get feedback from
would be,
folks.
you know, instructive to understand better. I think it's a challenge in general, no matter what
Yeah,
the issue
it
is.
is.
I think
Absolutely.
It is.
getting communications out about anything going on in town is tough.
Yes.
One thing I did want to say, and I don't know if this is true for public safety complex, at least with the senior center, but there's such a push and such a desire, at least on my end, to make this an intergenerational opportunity for folks to be able to have community-related events at the senior center. So it's not just for folks over the age of 60, but also when we do like grandparent dances, can somebody rent out the space and be able to utilize it for a town function? When I was up at UMass, we used to have community meetings over at the police station because it was a fantastic opportunity to both interact with our local law enforcement, but also utilize a space that was beautiful and functional for what we needed. So I don't know if that was talked about in any of the public safety complex meetings, but I know they host so many different local organizations outside because they can't have them inside.
Yeah.
The opportunities for community collaboration, I think, are huge. We just need to be able to provide the space for them.
Yeah, there's certainly
For
no
both
place,
buildings.
there's no place at the police station or the fire station to have
No.
such a meeting.
No.
Right.
The fire people and police people train here.
Come here, yeah.
Yeah.
And we'd have a much bigger voting facility in a new senior center than cramming people now that so many, I mean, it wasn't, you know, a huge, if 80% came out to vote, I'm not sure how they would have managed the flow of traffic in.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy with 38%
With
or
people
whatever.
going in different
There's no
directions. I
parking.
saw
Yeah.
that while I was there trying to maneuver people which side and which ballot box to put it, it was a little confusing.
And ADA
for folks.
accessibility is such a huge concern, especially with community spaces like that. It's not the one we are able to accommodate, but it's rocky sometimes when it's a lot of people, so.
Okay, so I think for the next steps of the committee for the special town meeting, I think it sounds like most people would like to move forward with a special town meeting in the fall. I mean, is that, am I getting a sense from most members of the committee?
I'd like to figure out what they're doing first.
Yeah,
I-
I'd
yeah.
like to,
I
you know,
agree.
kind of take baby steps forward.
Yes,
I don't think
absolutely.
that we should be jumping, saying we're gonna be on the ballot, because I think we need to spend some serious time talking about next steps,
For.
just in general.
general. Okay.
You know,
The
what,
co-chairs are talking about when to schedule a meeting, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we
That's my
need to
next
know what
question.
the public safety building committee,
What we're going to do or not to do.
yeah, we need to know.
Is there's still a desire to go forward with the original plan, right? Not to make any changes to it?
The original plan being
The
the cost
12,000,
estimate?
Yeah.
The 12,000 square foot? I mean, that's something we can talk about, or, I mean, I don't think anything's off the table at this
I
point.
don't think it's gonna be any less than that.
I
We'd
can't
have to
imagine it
redo
being
the
smaller, but,
drawings.
yeah.
And
Well,
well, I think the
We already
drawings will
did.
still be,
they're gonna have to be
the
redone
architect
anyway.
drawings will be redone anyway, but I think, yeah, I think we really cut out a lot of stuff, but I agree, like, nothing's set in stone, other than I think we all want to keep moving forward. Nobody wants to throw in the towel on it, but I think everything's kind of open.
But we want to do it wisely.
Right.
Right. Take our time and make the
Yep.
right choices for the right times.
So I'm assuming, so say we do move forward and we work with the architects, that's where we'll have the conversations about functionality of the spaces and different regarding layouts and
Mhm.
all that other fun stuff. Okay.
yeah, so we
Yeah.
are not stuck with the conceptual layout that we have right now.
Right, okay. I would just hate to get in that same situation,
Mhm.
what we just saw.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. Getting from the concept to the real plan are
Right.
two different animals.
Yeah, right.
Because you
So-
do have a lot of different information
Right.
in your head than than the prior committee did.
Yep.
And that's great, so we can alter that. But we know about the right size, and we know the cost for that size, so we can ask for the money.
Again, you get $1,000 per square foot, that's kind of what the cost of building is, so. I mean, I guess the only question I throw out is that, would we change our direction based on public safety?
I think we need to see what public safety is.
I mean, if they said yes, they're going ahead, and this is just conversational, this is not decisional. You know, I'm just asking your gut feelings at this point in time. If public safety says, yes, we're gonna go to the fall, do we say, okay, we'll wait? I mean, this is again, discussion. I'm not asking for, or do we just proceed as an independent committee? What are some of the thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's hard because it could go either way. I mean, I think I've heard a lot of people say that the seniors have kind of always been left out and, you know, need something. And it's definitely a need. Would people think differently? But then again, we don't want to be competing. We've said that from day one.
Right.
So
I think that's the issue.
it's
for us.
hard which way to go with it.
But you don't want to get nothing built.
No.
Exactly.
Right, you don't, because they
Don't
can't,
move
we don't want to
forward.
totally give up, but you also don't want to be like,
But I think the plan before this last go-around was that we would both go on the ballot in the fall.
Right.
There was some discussion about that, correct?
Right. So if the public safety doesn't move forward with the current plans, it's gonna take at least a year before
Okay.
we start. We're gonna have to find a new funding source, we're gonna have to go out,
There's no money
redesign
to
everything.
get an architect to redo.
Right.
Right.
So,
Right, I was wondering that.
it's gonna be a
Okay.
while,
Okay.
so just to throw that out there.
So that's why I said I don't know what the decision's gonna be, because we've gotta sit down and look at all the constraints that we have now, because the funding source isn't there to redo designs again. We've already engaged them to reduce it. At least once, if not twice.
Because it went from 28,000 square feet? Is that where it was?
Yeah, at one point it was.
Down to
yeah,
22,
21.
21.
It's 5,000 square feet more than what we currently have. Combining
Combining the two.
Combined police and fire and their various outbuildings, the trailer and all
Yeah,
these
yeah,
other
yeah.
things, where the bunks are.
So it's not like doubling the size of everything, right?
16,000 square feet actual, we're adding 5,500 to have functional rooms, so, that we don't have now.
Is that inclusive of like the garage bays and stuff too?
Yep,
Yep.
yep, and the garage bays are,
It's
the
like
apparatus
space.
bays are wider, because right now,
Yeah.
you've seen, I mean, you can't
can't
back
get in.
You can't get
the
in.
fire truck in there. So a large part of that space is wider bays for the equipment.
That doesn't seem like a large increase to have a much more functional.
No, it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't at all.
But, so, anyway, I don't know, what their decision, I have no idea what they're gonna be thinking, because I think our challenge is gonna be, where do we come up with the funding to have the architect redo stuff?
So if it is pushed up a year,
I mean, I don't think you guys should be held hostage,
my
is what I'm
vote
saying.
would be that we move forward. Because
Yeah,
we're not-
I, for that reason, I would do that too.
You don't want to not build this. I mean, we have been given money. The expectation is there that we would be.
Well, and you do have that advantage of
Right, we
being
have an
able
advantage.
but also to be able to move forward a bit, at least with the OPM and the architectural, because you could use those funds toward that.
The drawback I see to that is if we get the town to approve the senior center building, and the next time the public safety comes up, they're gonna say, well, we just approved 12 million, now we're gonna do another 20-some million.
Yeah.
The senior center is less expensive comparatively.
Yeah, I know.
It is.
But then people are gonna add the two together in their minds, and then you're
They
talking
are.
about
If
the
we put them
possible
on the
sewer
same ballot,
thing.
then it's going to
Yeah,
be
I
easy
mean,
to add.
that's been the way it is for the last couple of years, right? I mean,
Right.
that's not a new
Right.
phenomenon.
No,
They were
it's
both
not.
gonna be there, one way or the other, so.
I mean, also looking a year from now, I mean, there could be a real possibility that we're in the same situation that we are right now.
With public safety.
With just overall finances with the North
Okay.
School.
Right, right.
with the regional.
Without that
our
passing.
capital projects,
Federal money going away.
federal money going away. So the state is putting a hiring freeze,
Right.
so there could be other financial things in a year from now.
Yeah, I think
Throwing
grants
it out
may be
there.
harder to
They're
gather.
already- yeah.
Yeah.
Federal grants are gonna be
Federal
tough.
grants, yeah.
State so far is hanging in there.
Good, thanks for everybody's candor on that. I was just curious. And we'll get into that a little more deeper in the next one. Dennis, anything else you want to add
Keep
from?
going forward.
No, I think we've covered what we, yep.
Anything else, any other item that's not on the agenda that you want to touch base on? Okay, and you want to have our next meeting then?
I'm looking up. Wasn't reading emails.
Was there an idea on the next, that follow-up from Dotson, you think, already, more towards the end of June?
No.
Or,
Probably early to mid.
So yeah, if we were, that's a good point. If we
Probably have a
did,
special, we'll probably have to have a special meeting just for that.
okay.
It'll be a while.
How about the 12th, June 12th?
I have to check with DNF.
I mean, we can schedule it and if we need to.
That would be our
If we
typical
need to
time.
switch it a day or two,
Yeah.
one way or the other. It's June 12th, what's,
It's a Thursday.
yeah.
June 12th?
Is
We definitely gotta
everybody?
get it done before July
That's
then.
only 3
Yeah.
weeks away.
Yep,
12:30.
12:30.
yep, same, that time. Everybody's okay with that?
So right here.
Yeah.
What date was June 12th?
June 12th?
Well,
Joanne, our next meeting is June 12th. You're welcome to come back.
I was gonna say, am I barred now?
No, bring your friends.
you're always the public.
Absolutely.
And it's here?
Yes.
Yes.
well,
Yep. I'll just make sure to schedule the room. Okay, a motion to adjourn at 1:56. Darcy, second?
Second.
Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.